This is more than just vengeance. This is revenge. You've crossed America's most vindictive podcast, and now you must pay the ultimate price. You can call me Peyote.
Oh, that's great.
Too good.
I'm Ben Sheets, and I like my real Mexican beer.
I'll drink to that.
Indeed. And hello, I'm Cleveland Mosier, and I'm naked, but I'm not afraid.
Well, you better be.
Naked or afraid?
Both.
Okay, cool.
Because tonight we're talking about, we're actually talking about the very first of our Patreon picks. This film was chosen for us by honorary pod boy Sam Simon.
Thank you,
and,
Sam.
I will thank you in advance, Sam, for picking this fucking awesome film that we're about to talk about. We're going to be discussing the French extreme film Revenge.
Shudder exclusive.
Shudder exclusive. Came out in 2017 originally. Written and directed by Coralie Farge. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not good with French.
And starring Denise Targaryen.
No. No. The film stars Matilda Lutz, Kevin Janssens, Vincent Colomb, and Guillaume Bouchet.
You have to admit, she looks a lot like...
She looks a little bit like Emilia Clarke. Yeah.
A little bit.
A little bit. I can see it. Especially when she's all covered in muck.
Yeah, it's funny. I kept seeing the poster around before I saw this movie. I saw this movie last year and really loved it as a primer.
I can see why.
I saw the poster with her really dirtied up, and it looked like she was like a brunette. So when she first comes on screen and she's blonde, I was so thrown off at first. But it's because this movie is just so grimy.
So grimy and nasty and dirty.
just like us.
Yeah, just like us. It's the perfect film for us. Yeah, this is a sort of classic rape revenge thriller with sort of like a nice like modern veneer. Definitely a recent entry into the French extremity cinema movement. Some other films like Martyrs and Inside and High Tension, all of which I would love to talk about on the podcast at some point. It's about a young woman who is on vacation in the desert with her wealthy boyfriend. His sort of slovenly friends show up. There's some rape and some attempted murder.
And some revenge.
And then a whole lot of revenge. A whole lot of revenge.
Before we dig too deep into the film, I do just want to say, like, it feels good to have a Patreon pick.
It does.
Yeah.
It feels really nice. And yeah, I'm all about it.
Gives us a nice little surprise.
And many more. Because, yeah, this is really fun.
Yeah, definitely. And
This is a good one to start with.
Indeed.
totally. Yeah, you'd seen this before, Ben, but
Yeah.
Cleve and I have not. This is a first-time viewing for us. I thought it was fucking awesome, though. I
slapped.
really, really enjoyed it.
It fucking slapped. Yeah.
I want more movies like this where it's pure exploitation but shot really well and
Yes.
paced really well. Awesome music, and it doesn't skimp out on the practicals or the blood,
No.
you know? Like, I feel like with a lot of modern exploitation, they'll cut corners when it comes to showing us the juicy flesh or the bloody bits, and this movie definitely does not skimp out on that.
Yeah, I was a little... I won't say worried, but I was a little apprehensive at the beginning because we're introduced to like the entirety of our cast like pretty shortly right off the bat. Like we've got our protagonist and then her boyfriend and then his two friends. And I was going into this movie knowing that it was like kind of a super violent exploitation, rape, revenge movie. I'm like, not very many characters. So there's not a very high body count. But man, they make up for it in gratuity. For a film with a relatively low body count, there is so much gruesome blood and gore in this, and I was having such a great time.
And it's creatively done gore,
Yes.
too. Like, it's not just dude got stabbed. That's that. Mm-hmm. They really make the most out of their mileage with that.
I would have been impressed by one of these sequences. Like, any one of the kills could have been, like, the climax.
Yeah.
For me. And so it was very impressive.
What's interesting about this film to me is it starts very objectifying. You know, there's a lot of shots of our main protagonist's butt.
Yes.
Just constantly. You know, the first time I saw that, it kind of grossed me out in a way because it's very, like, voyeuristic in a lot of ways.
I think it's supposed to, though.
As male gazy as it could be.
Well, exactly, because it recontextualizes it shortly after and becomes a very different movie.
And also,
that.
like, knowing that it's written and directed by a woman, too, like, it's very
word?
obviously supposed to be sort of a woman's interpretation of the male gaze.
Yeah.
So it is, like, extremely exaggerated and lecherous and gross. And I think it's supposed to make you feel really uncomfortable because it certainly does.
Yeah.
The movie does a lot to really, like, make your stomach squirm before any of the blood starts happening. I would say, like, the whole first 30 minutes or so before there's any like really gratuitous violence or anything, before there's any blood, like it's just a lot of like sitting and stewing and how like fucking creepy and gross these men are.
This movie does a really nice job of presenting textures to us too. Like I think about kind of the apple, for example, early on.
Yeah.
That's kind of, she takes a bite out of it the day before and then it's left on the table. And the next day we get just a gross and browned, and that sets such a tone for what's to come.
And then later,
after.
and then later there's like an ant crawling on it. So it's like we keep cutting back to this apple that's just like, before the action kicks in, it's just getting like grosser and grosser, sort of reflecting the skeezy underbelly of like the nice like house and party veneer that they have. Because like the first night, like they're having a good time, you know, they're doing drugs and they're drinking and dancing and partying and watching wrestling, and it all feels like a good time. And then like the next day is when we see like the ant crawling on I love like the use of ants and like bugs in this movie, because it becomes sort of like a recurring visual motif.
Yeah, just crawling animals in general.
Yeah.
We've got the lizard shots and the rest. The animalistic nature of people. Like, it was very fun. I like that. I like that theme and how it's played up so directly. That whole opening sequence, really interesting to me. There have been times before on the podcast where I've been like, oh my god, it's so like male gazy, you know, like it's all like just these shots are just like right up this person's butthole. But here, the color correction is just so like vivid and gorgeous, and the music is so like captivating. And it's so well edited and shot that during those like ass tracking shots and stuff, they're so well done that I wasn't thrown off by it. It's so apparent like what they're trying to do.
And their intent
it was so,
isn't
like,
just
clear.
being sleazy, you know?
Right. And so
There's
like
self-awareness to it.
not even knowing the film like had a female director, like not that particularly matters, but like not knowing that even, like I still was so impressed by those shots that like it wasn't a thing for me at the time, even like because often it would be like you know, I'd be a little put off by it.
This movie's beautifully shot.
Gorgeous.
The aesthetic
Yeah.
is,
Fucking
you should
gorgeous
get that
in the
out of the
film.
way right off the bat. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Really colorful, really vibrant.
Yes.
You know, for most of it being set in the desert, you know, you really feel the sun a lot of times.
And the secret is they didn't just like ramp up the saturation. It's the set dressing in particular that makes it so colorful. The placement of these like yellow chairs and like teal pillows on the couches and stuff, like they're all like so carefully coordinated. Like even shots where characters are like walking into the bedroom and there's like a shirt that's like crumpled and thrown on the ground that's like very vividly pink, and then like somewhere else there's like a little red iPod on the bed, and it's just like they stand out so vividly, and even though they're just carefully thrown aside, it all just feels like art. Gorgeous. Absolutely stunning film.
The back side of the house that faces the pool is like all floor to ceiling glass windows, but two of the panes are like different colors. Like one of them is like hot pink and the other is like electric blue. Those are really cool. And one thing that I love too is that like once we get like out into the desert, like once she's being hunted by these guys, well, and she's hunting them really, even after like she's all grimy and dirty and she's been like stripped down to like her black underwear and she's all covered in dirt, she's still got those hot pink star earrings on. So there's like still these that remain like relatively clean. So
color
there's still,
contrast.
yeah, there's still like these really nice splashes of like this like 80s neon aesthetic.
Also, holy shit, her bikini in the first act, amazing design. The way like the side strap has like the black squiggles like on like 80s wallpaper. Coolest bikini ever. Like that, yeah, that fucking ruled. Great costuming in this film.
Yeah, it's got like this. The house got like this big white, like semicircular wraparound couch, and there's this big sort of like pop art Virgin Mary or like Madonna painting on the wall that is like, as you were saying, Ben, we were watching it. Like it's so tacky that it sort of comes back around to being cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it fits the room perfectly
Yeah.
because the whole
teal
house
matches.
is so pop art.
Yeah, like the colors all like match perfectly because it's like the skin on like the Madonna is like teal and then like the lips are pink and they have like the pink rouge like the opposing windows. So yeah, like that house. Fuck, God, I want to live in it. You know what? Just sell it to me like after the blood is all over the walls at a discount. Like that's fine. I'll take it. I'll take it as is.
Yeah, I'll slip and slide around the house.
Yeah, like Kramer and Seinfeld.
I love like the desert setting too, because I feel like a lot of your typical kind of like rape revenge movies or films where like somebody's being hunted and then the hunter becomes the hunted, so on and so forth. It's like in the woods or like the jungle, you know, very Most Dangerous Game kind of vibe, which is cool, but I like sort of this as an alternative setting. You know what what it reminded me of? Have either of y'all seen any of the Wolf Creek movies? No. Similar in that, like, there's a psycho, like, hunting people, but they're Australian, so they all take place in, like, the Australian outback. And the serial killer is, like, a psychotic Crocodile Dundee type guy.
That sounds rad.
Yeah, they're pretty fun. I've only seen the first one.
The desert setting makes it feel overall less bleak, which I really appreciate. I find myself having a hard time watching voluntarily rape revenge movies a lot of times.
Agree.
And this movie, honestly, it handles that stuff really tastefully insofar as you have it and it is rough still, but
Yeah, it's not easy to
they
watch.
don't show it directly.
No, it cuts away.
You
Like
know, you see some stuff through the window, but you're not just watching.
the film's
it
not
happen.
reveling.
It's
in it.
not.
We're here to
it's
revel in
not
the violence, not in that.
irreversible by any means.
No. It's not. It's nothing that extreme. Like it's still very difficult to watch and pretty graphic, but also done in like. I hesitate to use the word tasteful because it is rape, and rape is never tasteful.
Yeah.
But like there's so much intent around like the
It doesn't
way,
feel sleazy, I
like-
guess is a better way of saying it.
yeah.
Well,
so-
it's not trying to revel in it like a lot of these movies do.
Well-
like it doesn't feel exploitative. Is that maybe a better? I mean, it still
Yeah,
is. Like,
yeah,
it's still an
it's-
exploitation film, but
no,
it's not
doesn't.
reveling in it.
It doesn't
you
feel
know?
exploitive. Like there's what I
there's a
think
way for
about
it,
is like
sure.
when one of his the boyfriend's friends is like he starts raping her and the other friend comes in and he's just like if you want some, come in, otherwise like go away. And you know, we get these really sickening
vile.
extreme close-ups of the dude just standing in the doorway like eating like Crunch bars or whatever.
Yeah, once again, texture.
Yeah.
With his gross, almost pig-like mouth.
Yeah.
Pulling apart this really nasty candy bar.
Joe noticed like when he pulls like it's like a Milky Way, so it's got like the kind of gooey center. When he pulls it back,
It makes
on
like
that
a-
micro close up. It's like a like someone's like twisting rubber.
Yeah.
like it's this like cool like macro like made micro sound.
But
I really like that.
he turns around and like walks out and closes the door and he like turns the TV volume up really loud and he goes out to the pool, and the shot that I think of is like the shot of the window because she's like pushed up against the window and like we can see like her face and her hand like banging against the glass, and the slovenly friend is like reflected in the glass, like walking around the pool and like diving in, just like totally ignoring it. Like it's wretched, but it's like it's a really good split perspective shot.
Yeah.
Done with like very minimal like camera trickery. Like it's effective.
Yeah.
It's not drawn out though, which is
Exactly. They don't
what I
linger
appreciate.
on it too long.
Yeah, when you make the comparison to Irreversible, like it's not a 10-minute uncut rape scene. It's nothing like that. This isn't the Gaspar Noé film.
Oh, thank God. I appreciate that because, like, when you look at how gratuitous the rest of this film is, they don't like take it in that direction. And going back to being shot in the desert, by the end of it, I think we'd about settled on the fact that this film was likely shot in either Spain or Italy.
Italy,
I would say
yeah.
Italy.
Probably Italy.
Either is very viable, a la like old spaghetti westerns. Spaghetti westerns, giallo, like all these films sort of like share that sense of like over the top, gratuity and almost zaniness. I thought it fits so well.
Yeah, and it definitely carries that lineage of vibrant colors and really vibrant scenes. And I think
you bring up Giallo, and like it definitely has like Argento-esque blood.
Yeah.
A little less cheap looking, but like extremely vibrant red. Like almost like paint.
Plenty of it.
Tons of it.
They don't skimp out on it. And I think, a lot of the vibrancy and that stuff is what makes a lot of this feel so cathartic.
Yeah.
Even though the rape scene is tough, just like any other rape revenge film,
as it should
like
be.
the blow is lessened a little bit by all the catharsis you have afterwards.
Oh yeah. Well, I think that's sort of like how you do a rape revenge film successfully, is like light on the rape, heavy on the revenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And this film does that. Like the really like uncomfortable sexual assault stuff is done 30 minutes into the movie, and then we've got over an hour of murder. Yeah, so they chase her out into the desert because she tries to tell her boyfriend that his friends raped her while he was gone. He tries to play it off like it's not a big deal. She says, call the helicopter and get me out of here, or I'm gonna call your wife and tell her about us.
Up until this point, he's presented as a protagonist, and I love that. Like the opening shot of the film is, I think there are a few lead-ins, but like the big like one that they hold on is of him in the forefront with his aviators like reflecting the sky and like all these cool pink and teal patterns, and she's behind him. He's like blonde, built, fucking the dude is toit, and he's got like a fat ass chin. Oh my god! Like you could fit a quarter in that chin. Like, but
it looks like a coin slot.
It does. So he looks almost like cartoonishly manly man heroic ass.
He's like French Aaron Eckhart.
Yeah, this dude's just like an Ubermensch walking around, and he's shown as like moral almost at the very, very beginning. Like, you're not under the impression that he's doing like.
You find out pretty quickly after they get into the house and like immediately have
that
sex.
he is not moral.
Then that he gets on the phone with his wife.
Yeah.
So
And
you find
can
out
hear
within,
the kids in the background and stuff.
You hear the baby crying. Like you find out within the first few minutes.
Oh,
that,
speaking
like,
of, you hear the
he
baby
is-
crying in the background, and that's the one thing I can really fault this movie for is they use like the standard stock baby crying
generic
sound.
crying baby.
We've all heard the meh, like when the baby goes like that. Like everyone's heard it.
We're ruined after Spiral with the computerized baby.
Hey, but there it would have worked. He would have grabbed a stock baby noise because it is fake. So that actually would have worked better in Spiral.
But now you just think about it every time.
It's
You're
true.
thinking,
Yeah.
oh,
maybe
hey,
he was
maybe,
actually on the phone with Jigsaw. And that this is actually in the Saw
Spiral universe. Yeah, the Saw universe. Wow. Yeah, so like we get off the bat that he's at least a scumbag because he's like cheating on his wife.
But maybe like he still has a heart of gold or something. Maybe that's just one
like
flaw. We don't know.
When he comes back and like finds that she's been raped, like he he like confronts his friend like you would expect him to, or like you would expect a good guy to, but then very quickly you realize that he's not a good guy
He's
because
just gonna try and brush it under the rug
Yeah.
after like quote confronting them.
yeah, well, like she says she wants to go home, and then she like falls asleep, and when she wakes up, he like tells her that he's gotten her a job in Canada.
Like he feels bad.
Which is unspecified. Well, the vibe that I got is that he's like trying to pimp her out. Because he like hands her a piece of paper. He's like, here's the money that'll be deposited into your account. You can do whatever you want with it. Yeah. You know, and like maybe he is just trying to like distance himself from her, like send her across to the other side of the world and like give her a bunch of hush money to like go away and not
That's
talk.
how I read it.
Yeah.
I think that is a solid read on it too, because he doesn't specify what the job is. Like, hey, I got you a job in Canada. Like, it feels a little skeezy to me, but
He seems like the kind of rich asshole that just throws money at his problems. You know,
Yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
later they mention their lawyers can fix any problem that they have. So, like, I think he's just used to just throwing money and not disregarding.
Probably
that,
right.
Like, that's second nature.
and she obviously rejects that and says like, no, get the helicopter. Like, I want to go home right now. And when he refuses, she says like, okay, well then I'm going to get on the phone and call your wife and tell her about us. And that is when he snaps and chases her out into the desert with his friends. She ends up on the edge of a cliff, and he sort of like pretends to call the helicopter and be like, hey, sorry, we don't worry about it. Like, I'm calling the helicopter right now. And then he pushes her off the cliff, and she falls and is impaled on like a dead tree at the base of the cliff, which is fucking grotesque and shocking, and also like and sort of I was like, oh shit, well, she's dead. So where's the movie going?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that's the reason she didn't die. Is because she got impaled rather than take just the Bourse trauma.
Yeah, like a fucking wet sack of concrete. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like
oh
a,
man.
like a melon. You would like, because that was like a 30-foot drop.
And also, like, it just makes the rest of the movie where she has to, like, survive after that just all the more brutal, because it's not just like she fell off a cliff. She fell off a cliff and got impaled on a tree. And, like, to get off, she, like, she like, uses her headphones, her earbuds to, like, pull her lighter close to her, which is on the ground, and then starts a brush fire under the tree.
Brilliant.
Yeah, but also it's like the fire is like under her, like you for the rest of the movie, like her back is all like burned and charred up. But yeah, it allows her to break the tree and get away. But for like the next like 30 minutes probably, she's walking around like with the tree branch like sticking out of her gut.
That's longer than that.
It's for a good chunk of the movie.
Well, she goes for a swim with it in her gut.
Yeah, which is the
like,
most brutal.
Yeah, that shit would have got
imagine.
infected for sure. for sure. But yeah, then the three guys decide, well, we can't let her get away, so we gotta go hunt. They're there for a hunting trip anyway, so they have guns and like ATVs and dirt bikes and shit. So they head out into the desert to hunt her.
Going back briefly, I do want to mention also the fucking awesome shot of the ant beneath her, and like you crawling around, and then there's just like this bombshell of a blood droplet, like it's like a bomb, like or like a mortar shell going off next to this ant, you know, like it's just underneath her.
They really like drowning bugs in this movie.
Yeah.
Because
various body fluids.
Yeah, because Stan pisses on a spider later, and they really just like piss on that spider.
Yeah, I guess I was asking about it earlier. I was like, you really can't like put like no animals were harmed in the making of this movie if you step on a bug, but like obviously you can't. Like I don't think they count insects, but like in this movie, like I guess bugs are animals, and they were harmed.
Yeah, they were dripping blood all over some ants and pissing on spiders and shit.
They drowned that spider in piss. Like,
Yeah. For sure,
That
for
spider's
sure.
dead. That's rough.
Or at least covered in piss.
Yeah. Still rough.
Either way.
Yeah.
Either way.
I'm arachnophobic, but I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, imagine you're just like walking around minding your own business and a giant comes along and pisses on you until you die.
Yeah. Every day, man. Every day.
Yeah, that's kind of what life in America is like, isn't it?
It's true,
damn.
yeah. If you think about it.
Damn.
So yeah, let's talk about the first kill. She
Moida.
escapes with the tree branch stuck in her and gets all the way to a sort of pond of some
It's a
sort.
river, I think.
river?
She makes it to a river.
Yeah. And they are looking for her because they went back to the scene of the crime and saw the charred remains of the brush fire and her not there.
And a trail of blood.
Yes.
Most importantly,
Yes.
that's they follow the trail of her blood all the way to the river and then decide to split up. One of them is going to stay there. The boyfriend's going to go off one way. The fat guy's going to go off another way. I love that, like, the fat friend, Dimitri, has, like, hardly any lines until, like, the part where he finds her in, you know, a little after this. Like, for most of the movie beforehand, he just, like, stands around looking like a dumb fucking hog, you
And
know?
eating.
Eating, like,
Constantly eating food.
standing around just like slack jawed with his mouth open, like he doesn't talk, like he's just I almost wish he didn't have any lines at all.
There's a really funny sequence when she's running away from the house and they're all chasing after her and Dimitri's like chugging.
It keeps
in the background.
it keeps cutting back and forth between each person running, and like her and the boyfriend and Stan are like running normally, and then it keeps cutting to Dimitri who's just like huffing and puffing, which, real talk, relatable, that would be me. But it is pretty funny.
I like that he has a couple lines. It makes it a little bit more genuine. He would have only been a cartoon character, like if he'd never had any lines at all, I think.
And the lines he has just makes him all the more monstrous.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because in a lot of ways he's playing with his food and in sort of the hunting lingo. You know, he has her by the head and he's, you know, dunking her in the water. He could kill her at any time, but he likes seeing her suffer.
Well,
And it's
she comes upon him while like he's taking a piss and like grabs his rifle or his shotgun and, you know, tries to shoot him, but it's unloaded. And, you know, then like as he's dunking her in the river, he like keeps pulling her head out of the water to like gloat. Like he says something like, my preferred style of hunting is to like make my prey think that I'm vulnerable and like come and try to attack me, and then it turns out that I am the one who was tricking them all along. There definitely remains something to be said for whether he's just saying that because he's in a dominant position, or whether he actually did like take a piss and leave his rifle like as an attempt to try to trap her. But it doesn't really matter. But his gloating is also what gets him killed. Because, of course, because as she continues to be dunked in the water, she eventually grabs the knife on his belt and stabs him in both eyes. She gives him the old 1-2.
It's really brutal too. You get some decent shots of him just writhing around, just completely bloodied in the face.
Yeah, with a knife stuck in one eye and the other eye like already put out by the knife. And then you get like the great shot of like once he's dead and floating in the water of her like having to pull the knife out of his skull.
Yeah, and then she says, "Knife to know ya," and then walks away.
She doesn't, but I wish she did.
Can you imagine if she was just cracking one-liners throughout this whole movie?
I mean, I wish, honestly.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine. But we don't need that because we had Cleveland for that.
Yeah.
Knife knowing ya.
And others. So after that, she takes his ATV and his gun and like his bag, and she rides off into the desert and finds a cave.
As seen on ATV.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
And she builds a fire, and she remembers that in her locket around her neck, she has some peyote.
I love how they introduced that peyote earlier in the movie.
Well, it's one of the first. It's at the very beginning when the helicopter pilot drops them off. Like when the boyfriend like goes to shake his hand, he like puts a little baggie of something in his hand. So the helicopter pilot gave him the peyote, which is cool. And you know, then when they're partying, he says like, he's like, oh yeah. You know, this peyote is pretty intense stuff. There's a guy a few years ago who took some and went crazy and sawed his leg off because he didn't feel any pain or whatever.
And they found him with no blood left in his body. Which sounded silly at the time, but after seeing how much blood is lost from people in this movie.
Yeah, I believe it. But he says basically like this stuff plus firearms is an accident waiting to happen. So he gives it to her and he says, go hide it somewhere. Go hide it somewhere safe. And it turns out she puts it in her little heart-shaped locket. And I love that comes back around because I had forgotten about it until she gets into the cave and she's like trying to take the stick out of her gut, the tree branch, and it hurts too much, and then she remembers and opens up the locket and takes the peyote and uses it as like a painkiller. And I thought it was cool because like I feel like realistically, like every time I've done hallucinogenics, like all I've ever wanted to do is just stare at my hands. And so like realistically she would have just taken that shit, laid in that cave staring at her hands until she bled out and died. But instead she goes like full Rambo, and not only does she cut the branch out, but then like a total fucking badass, she
cuts the beer can in half, splays it across a stick. Is it the same stick she's impaled by?
No, she splays it across a knife.
A knife.
Yeah.
Oh, even cooler. Yeah, knife.
And then this is a knife, and holds it over the fire, and then uses the like plate of hot aluminum to cauterize the wound, which is fucking awesome. And not only does it cauterize the wound, but it also gives her a fucking awesome brand.
Yeah.
It looks just like a tattoo. It's a little unrealistic.
Well, I mean, very according to Ben's, it's a very solid point, which was that it says like
it says Mexican beer
on the can,
yeah,
but it also says Mexican beer on her, and it would absolutely be in reverse.
It would be in reverse.
Who the fuck
yeah.
cares? This is really cool territory. Like,
it's cool because like the label is like it's like a phoenix.
Uh-huh.
It's like a firebird, and it says Mexican beer.
Wait. If she used the inside, like the inner part of the can,
she didn't though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
Well, because the inner part was just like flat unprinted aluminum.
Yeah, which would have been the better side to brand yourself with. But
Yeah.
who
But I
cares?
mean,
it wouldn't be the cooler side, and that's what matters.
What we get is like where she has this horrible gut wound. She now has a fucking metal ass phoenix burned onto her stomach that says Mexican beer on it.
She passes out from the intensity of it, and then just has a series of very intense peyote dreams.
Yeah, I love the way they did that. They do the fake out where she like wakes up and like gets up and starts to walk out of the cave, and then like the boyfriend appears with the shotgun and blows her head off, and then she wakes up again. And I would have almost been a little annoyed by the cliche of that, except they do it again immediately. She gets,
just keep doing
She
it.
gets right back up, starts walking out of the cave. He appears again, shoots her in the head again, and then she wakes up. And then that time when she wakes up, it's the guy she drowned, all like bloated and soggy and like vomiting water and stuff. It's
But again, you get textures in between it too.
Plus-
You get like weird like wormy things and like the iguana skin.
Yeah, it's like the end of like Pink Floyd's The Wall with like the writhing worms and like cutting back to that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, she
Very
sees
fitting.
she sees Stan who raped her, and she like sees him like licking his lips, and then it's superimposed with an iguana licking its lips. And the
Love that.
the one that really got me, she has a flashback back to the beginning when she's like giving her boyfriend a blowjob, and it intercuts that with like a centipede like biting down on a maggot with like its mandibles. That was what really got me.
Really effective.
Yeah.
Like they're paired like right next to each other
Yeah.
perfectly, and it's fantastic. And two, like I love that because that's very much the cyclical nature of psychedelics. There's a lot of like boomeranging that happens. You know, you get caught in those like feedback loops. So it's very fitting that like she would experience herself like dying again and again. Like it is almost like an ego death. You know?
Except
like,
then
it's like a literal death.
Except then finally she just wakes up and she's not tripping anymore. It's
Yes.
a little abrupt, but I don't care. Because then at that point, like she has experienced ego death, kind of like she is all that is left. Like she's passed through fire and been reborn from the ashes, like the Mexican beer phoenix. And she's no longer the hunted. Now she is the hunter. So I love that they use her peyote trip to sort of like represent that death and rebirth, where she dies as the hunted and is reborn as the hunter. Because then she's just like a complete stone cold badass for the rest of the movie.
She's Lady Terminator.
Yes.
Which is awesome, honestly. It's
way cooler than the
yeah.
actual Lady Terminator. Apparently, I haven't seen it.
But I'm
I don't
willing
hear
to.
good things. I don't know.
I'm willing to bet that you're right, though. It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, this movie rules.
There's sort of like multiple role reversals. Like she goes from, being the victim to being the hunter, but also her boyfriend goes from being like the seemingly good guy. He becomes like really cartoonishly evil.
Yes.
He, especially by the end, he's giving me big Anthony Starr in The Boys vibes, like big Homelander vibes. The same kind of like maniacal, psychopathic, like pretty blonde guy.
Yeah.
But also what I really like is that Stan, the one who rapes her, once like everything starts going down and like shit hits the fan, like he becomes totally sniveling and pathetic.
Yeah.
Like the one who is like the most predatory at the beginning becomes totally worm-like and cowardly. Makes sense, but I love how all of the primary characters, other than Dimitri, who's the first one killed, they all sort of like become the opposite of what they are at the beginning.
Yeah, there's a fundamental shift. It makes everything feel much more dynamic in the film.
Yeah. No character ends the film as they started.
Yeah. And seeing Stan get hunted down as he's driving and the Jeep
Yeah.
is so satisfying. He's like Richard punches him in the nose and breaks his nose. So he's like sticking Kleenex up his nose and holding a mirror up, and she catches the reflection of
Yes.
the mirror in her binocular or in the scope. I think that's just so brilliant how clever they are with like how she finds him.
Well, his death is so drawn out too, which is great.
Creative.
Because like his Jeep runs out of gas, so he's like refueling and gives her a chance to catch up to him, and she shoots him, but underestimates the kick that the shotgun will have, which I like because she's never fired a gun, presumably, so she would, and she hits him, but it gets him in the shoulder, and it's like a really brutal, nasty wound, but not a fatal one. So then they have like the kind of little bit of cat and mouse where he gets his rifle and shoots at her and like shoots off half of her ear, which once again is really
Blasts off one of the earrings.
Once again, really nasty. But I love the trick that she does when she's running and he's shooting at her, and she takes the flashlight and smashes it on a rock as she's running by. So the glass scatters behind her, and he's taken off one of his boots.
Like caltrops.
Yeah, he's taken off one of his boots so he can use the sock to like make a tourniquet for his wound, and so he's running and steps on a shard of glass.
Oh boy, is that
man.
gratuitous. Wow, that is.
It's
Man.
really drawn out too as he tries to get the piece of glass out of his foot. He's just like digging around.
It's
in
like-
this
It's
open
drawn out as
wound.
it's slowly drawn out.
It's like
yeah.
2 minutes of him digging around in his foot, like trying to pull out this massive shard of glass. It is absolutely grisly.
Yeah.
and awesome.
And he's like whining and blubbering like a baby the whole time too.
Some
I was
dope practicals.
Oh god,
for
man!
sure.
All the practicals in this movie, like if there is any CG in this entire film that's not in like the psychedelic transitions in her dream, like I would be shocked. Everything is fucking practical. It's so grisly and gross. I was saying in the moment it would have been she would have had plenty of time to just walk up behind him and just like blow his head clean off, but she doesn't. Instead, we get a pretty great game of chicken where she is just standing in the road as he's charging at her with the car, just shooting at him until she finally gets him in the head and jumps out of the way of the car last minute.
Yeah, surprisingly, the car doesn't barrel off the cliffside.
I was hoping it would have, but Cleveland was right. Like, she needs the car
Yeah.
to get back to the house for the final confrontation with the boyfriend at the end. Would have been probably a little unrealistic.
And the
for her to
practical of
walk.
like the burst of blood like out the headrest on the back end of the
Was cool.
seat is so
Yeah.
good. Like it's
That's
plenty enough
great.
for me. Yeah.
And, you know, we definitely needed her to get back to the house for the final
Yeah.
sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Because, oh man.
if she'd walked, that would have been
This
really
is the
stupid.
second time I've seen this movie, but I think back on that final sequence in the house a lot because it's so bloody and violent and brilliant. Like,
I really like after the whole thing with Stan and like the glass in his foot and I didn't know how the film could top itself. Like I was like I was like, well, this has like we're not going to get anything as like crazy as this, and then it tops itself in like such a big way. Like the movie has such an unbelievable climax.
it's cartoonish, but
Yes.
it's so cathartic that I don't mind.
It's cartoonish in like a Tarantino kind of way. Like it's cartoonish in like a Reservoir, like an old Tarantino, like Reservoir Dogs or Pulp Fiction.
Grindhouse.
Yeah, it's very grindhousey, and it is maybe the most blood I've ever seen in a single scene of a movie. Maybe not the most I've ever seen, but in a long time.
Well, I was saying it around the end of the movie, but this is like the most blood I've seen in a movie in over a decade. It's so good for that
Yeah.
alone, you know?
Sorry, but like Ready Player One had a shot of the Shining in it with the blood elevator doors, and that was in this decade. So, gotta give it to Ready Player One. Sorry, Ben.
Man,
Hey, but that was CG blood.
Yeah, also
that doesn't
fucking
count,
stupid.
yeah.
Even if it wasn't, it wouldn't count.
I do.
Movie sucks.
I don't think it's much of an exaggeration to say that by the end of this scene, as much blood as the elevator scene in The Shining has been used in this movie, just like spread all over the house.
I know it's a completely different tone, but it nears the levels of blood at like the end of Dead Alive almost, where you get
Yeah.
like just puddles of blood in the hallway.
Yeah. Well, so Richard, the boyfriend, makes it back to the house first. He knows that his two friends have been killed. He gets back to the house. He's like in the shower and he hears something. And so he grabs his gun And we get this really great long single take of him like walking around the whole house naked with the shotgun, looking around. When he finally sees her at the very beginning, when Stan and Dimitri first show up, like she's in the kitchen, like in her underwear, she's like getting a glass of water, eating the apple, and turns around and is startled because Stan is standing outside on the other side of the pink pane of glass holding a gun. And at the end here, when he turns around and sees her, it's the same except he's seeing her through the blue pane of glass, and she's on the outside looking in with the gun pointed at him.
Yeah. And one subtle thing that's done in that scene is they have this advert for Shop USA, and earlier
Shop Club USA or something like that.
Earlier on in the movie, she talks about how she wants to move to LA someday so she can be seen. She says, you know, everyone in LA is seen.
Yeah.
And suddenly she is seen, you know, in the same way her predator was seen by her. She has now become the predator.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool kind of callback to that.
Also, like the fact that commercial, it's like an infomercial is running on a loop for like the entirety of their sort of like chase around the house is like absurd in the best way.
It's almost disorienting too.
Yeah, it's like it's in English, but it's very obviously an English commercial like made for European television. Like it's the emphasis on like the Shop Club USA is like very on the nose. But she shoots him through the glass. And honestly, I thought that was just going to like end it there. Like she was just going to shoot him and it was going to be done. But he kind of like jumps out of the way. So instead of like taking it head on, he gets gut shot. He then has this really enormous seeping gut wound that very nicely parallels hers. Then we just have like this super extended sequence of them literally chasing each other in a circle around the house.
I love how before he finds her on the other side of the window, he goes all the way around. It really creates the sense of space so that once we are just going in circles, it feels like we're very spatially aware of the kind of orientation of the house. It almost gets dizzying, you know, because they're just going around and around chasing each other. And, you know, at points she's, you know, closing in on him, and at points he's closing in on her.
With every pass they make, the hallway gets bloodier.
Yeah.
More blood is smeared on the wall. More blood is on the floor. I even said, like, I wonder who's going to slip on all the blood in the hallway first. I was mostly joking. But then she does slip on the blood and goes down.
Much.
Yeah.
I think it was hilarious that he covered himself in saran wrap.
Yeah, he wrapped his wound up with saran wrap, which is... It's clever. It's creative. Yeah. It's gross though. I love too, like before the chase really gets started in earnest, like after they take like the first sort of slower loop around the house, like he's around, we see that he's around the corner, like waiting for her. Like if she walks through, he's going to shoot her, and she almost does, but she stops because she sees a little stream of blood peeking out behind the corner, and so she knows that he's there.
Just another clever moment from this movie. Yeah.
But it is dizzying is a great word, because it's just cutting back and forth between them as they're just running in what we know is just a circle around the house, just over and over and over and over.
It's pretty close to comedic.
It's kind of slapstick. It's almost like Scooby-Doo ish.
The Benny Hill, like the
little yakety sax. Except that like he is that was the scene where I really got like Homelander vibes, where he's just like maniacally like grinning and just like covered in blood and just like shaking. It was really great.
Well, that's a trope or an archetype that I don't think I'll ever get tired of, is like the character who like by like all standards of cinema like should be the hero, like is the like physically and you know, just like this idealized figure, like is the fucking worst. Just
Turns out to be the most evil.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and it's great too because it's like he's not the one who rapes her, you know, like usually in these movies the main villain is like the rapist, you know, but Stan is the rapist and he's cowardly and sniveling and you know, she kills him earlier, but like the boyfriend, the one who's supposed to like be on her side and stand up for her, turns out to be the most psychotic
Well,
evil.
also he's the one who like attempts to murder her. Like
Yes.
like he pushes her off.
Yeah,
a
he's the one who
fucking
pushes
cliff.
her off the cliff, and
Yeah.
Stan and Dimitri are both like, what the fuck?"
Yeah.
But she slips and falls on the blood. He bashes her in the head with the shotgun, and then you know, starts choking her to death. And like every good villain is undone by his monologuing, because he starts talking about like you women always have to fight back, and
She's like, yeah.
like, yes, that's correct. And gets him to drop her by like digging her hand into his gaping wound, which like, man, it's just fucking spatial awareness, dog. It gets
Yeah,
everybody in
that's
this
this movie.
movie.
Yeah.
It's like fucking Dimitri spending too much time
awareness.
trying to drown her, not aware of the knife on his belt that she grabbed, and then this motherfucker monologuing and trying to choke her to death. And it's like you've got like a huge gunshot wound in like within arm's reach. So she digs into that. He drops her. She grabs the shotgun and shoots him, kills him. Very satisfying.
Yeah, cool, because like he's just a big slippery pile of naked meat.
Yeah, yeah. It makes it it makes it even funnier that the whole time he's completely naked.
Yeah.
I also think that it's a fun sort of reversal that there's way more male nudity in this than female nudity. Like
Yeah.
there's like one shot sort of at the beginning when before the rape scene when like Stan walks in on her and like she's topless, but like for that whole finale, Richard is hanging dong.
He's hanging dog.
He's hanging dong and running around flopping dong.
Because he hangs dog at the beginning of the movie too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
It's like
that's
his
true.
theme.
It's true. Yeah, he hangs a lot. That dude, he hangs a lot of dong in this movie.
Like poetry,
So-
it rhymes.
Online, I've seen a lot of discourse about how this is a really great feminist film, and I think it really is. You know,
It's a deal. Yeah, frankly.
you know, because it's not preachy, but it definitely gets its point across well.
Well, you heard it from these white guys first. It's a great feminist film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're definitely the most qualified people to speak on that.
It's true.
But I agree with you though. I agree with you.
Same.
It's definitely a film of female empowerment. I think that there's certainly room for criticism that like in these types of movies, a woman's empowerment always has to come as a result of like being raped or abused or something. Again, not super qualified to speak on it, but I think that there's room for that critique. But like I said a while ago, this is the right way to do one of these movies where it's light on the rape, heavy on the revenge.
And it's pure catharsis. You know, seeing her.
Also, for a movie called Revenge, like, it should be nothing but revenge.
Before we rate, let's talk about the music quick.
Yes, gotcha.
Yes, I caught in the credits is music by our boy
our
Rob.
boy!
It's our boy Rob.
Boy.
Pod People regular, Rob.
Honestly.
I was pleasantly surprised to see that too, because I think that out of all the films we've talked about that have music by Rob, this one has the most memorable and noteworthy score.
And I love the score in all of his films, like that he's composed. But this one was like the EDM is so rich, like the texturing, like on those like gravelly bass lines,
Very
like,
dancey.
It's like
yeah.
French electro, French housey,
and like
sort of
good French electro, like.
It's got like some Carpenter Brute vibes.
Carpenter
a little,
Justice,
yeah,
Two
Justice,
Fingers
yeah,
gives me like Two
Justice.
Fingers vibes. Like it was really good.
But then he uses all these like distorted samples. It almost feels like blown out sampling,
Yeah.
and it has such a chunky quality that works so well in the desert heat because it almost feels like it's overheating.
Man, I'm glad you brought up Justice. It does give me a lot of like really heavy Justice vibes.
Parisian underground electronica duo vibes.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, and there's
the shot where he's on the motorcycle.
where he's on the motorcycle. and
Because
made
my
the
joke was
yeah.
it looks like a Daft Punk cameo.
Yeah, I
like,
didn't know Daft Punk was in this movie. But
the motorcycle shot's hilarious too. Like it's really well lit with like the red light around his black helmet at night. Like it looks so cool. Like the way the colors are like moving across it, and there's like the wind whipping.
and it's like a slow dolly in on his face.
Yeah, like I love that. But it is very obvious that he's stationary.
Yeah.
and the bike is shaking.
Yeah.
But it's so much fun. Like I don't care. Like it was still an amazing.
It's so
shot.
stylish. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think we've covered this movie pretty well, top to bottom.
I just wanted to say too that like ballsy move, just naming your film Revenge.
yeah,
Like just you know what you're coming in for, and for it to be like a rape revenge film, like standing on top of like such like a long legacy of like revenge and exploitation movies.
If
to
it was-
give your film like such like a dead title like that is
if it was a bad movie, it would be lazily titled.
it would be lazy, but also like ambitious. And it pulls it off. It pulls it off so well.
Because it's hardly the only film called Revenge, but
Of course.
for at least for me, it's going to be when somebody says, "Have you seen Revenge?" Like whatever they're talking about, this is what I'm going to think of.
Definitely.
For sure. I guess I'll slap a rating
Sure.
on that. I think that really says it all. I think we've pretty well covered everything that I loved about this movie. It's going to be a very strong 4.5 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, this is a movie that I liked even more a second time. I think about that final chase sequence in the hallway a lot, in that like it is bloody and it's pure neo exploitation, but neo exploitation done so well that I was just left wanting even more of the same thing. Yeah, this is a strong 4.5 out of 5 as well for me.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing in this film that makes me want to like take away a star or half a star. Like I don't know why I wouldn't give it just a clean 5. Like this movie rules.
What about the stock baby sound, Cleveland?
Not even half a star for that. That's such a small like detail. It's gonna be a clean 5 from me. There's no reason not to give it a 5 in my opinion.
All right. Well, that will give Revenge a very powerful 4.7 out of 5 pods. Big thanks once again to Sam, who I know is listening to this. Thank you for giving us a great recommendation.
Yeah. I'll be watching it again at some point for sure.
rules.
Yeah.
And for others who are interested in recommending us a film, stick around for a few minutes and I'll tell you how you can do that. Next week, we're going to be talking about another new film, The Forever Purge. We have covered all of the other Purge films on this podcast.
Have a great habit of every other film being really good.
Every other one.
And we're on the bad cycle this time.
If that pattern...
I don't know, man. That trailer looks awesome. I've never watched a single Purge movie. I've never had any interest in watching a Purge movie until I saw the trailer for this one.
See,
the trailer
honestly,
looks fucking
the thing
awesome.
is, the last one was also probably the best one.
I would agree.
So if they're coming off a strong at bat,
I would say this one has
maybe-
potential to maybe be the worst one.
Well, this movie could absolutely fuck up the commentary. I'm a little concerned. Some of it seemed a little cringy in the trailer.
The Purge
But
is
dude-
not good at commentary.
But dude, the villain, like that fucking like punk cowboy vibe, is awesome.
The trailer makes it look very fun. I hope it is good. It's very obviously The Purge's commentary on MAGA culture. So
which could be really cringy.
it has potential. I'm leaning more towards the side of it being cringy and heavy-handed because The Purge is not known for its subtlety.
If it leans into like the action schlock, it could be really fun because the aesthetic is great. Like it looks like a fun movie.
It's got potential. It does look like a fun movie. So check back with us next week to hear our thoughts on the Forever Purge. Now it is time for a word from our sponsor. We are not with the sponsor shelf, but I did bring the sponsor shelf with me.
Oh, good! I'm so glad. That you pulled that strange shard out of your pocket, which seems to be absorbing light. Interesting. Okay, let me.
It's getting darker in the room as we speak.
Yeah, here I'm gonna have to read this quick before there's no light at all. Oh wait, nope, the lights just went out. But what's this? I can still see. This episode is brought to you by how nice, a bat with a little top hat.
Oh,
that's sweet.
how wholesome!
He's come to give you
What's he doing here?
the good news, and the good news is that he's here.
That is good news.
Yeah.
It really is.
Thanks, Bat in a little top
wonderful.
hat.
Man,
Don't give me COVID.
don't.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, careful. Don't let him speak though, because it'll.
His mouth contains forbidden secrets.
Yes, yeah, and those
Forbidden bioweapon.
those need to stay right where they are. Careful, those need to stay right where they are. I think. But he is very sweet, a little bat with a top hat.
All right.
Good sponsor.
Well, that'll bring us to the end of this week's episode. If you want to support the show,
Speaking of sponsors.
speaking of sponsors, if you want to support the show, we have a Patreon now. With several different tiers. The highest level tier is Honorary Pod Boy, which not only gives you a special shout out on each episode of the show and the episodes 2 days early, but it also allows you to submit films for our patron pool. So if you want to be like Sam and have us talk about a specific film on the show,
Jans, I know you're listening. You've been recommending movies at me, dude. If you want us to watch another one of your movies before you come on and guest again, you know what to do.
Gotta head over to the Patreon.
You know what to do, Jans. I'm calling you out.
As patreon.com/podpeoplepod. But as always, none of our episodes are paywalled. So if you're not in a position to support the show financially, then that's okay. You'll still get every episode for free. And if you want to support the show, not through Patreon, then the best way to do that is to head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and a nice little review. That is a great way to help us boost our numbers and get into more people's ears. So if you do that, we really appreciate it.
This episode was brought to you by listeners like you.
That's right.
I've always wanted to say that, like the PBS.
Like the PBS. Yeah. You can follow us on Twitter at PodPeoplePod and at letterboxd.com/PodPeoplePod, where you'll find a list of all the films we've talked about on the show with our average ratings and links to those reviews. If you want, you can follow me on Twitter at SomeSpookySnake.
I'm on Twitter at Mr. Sheets.
And I'm occasionally tweeting for Light Arc Studio as we further progress on It Stares Back. Stay tuned. Check out the live event Realms Deep when it's coming out. When is it coming out? You're going to have to Google that. But
maybe we'll have more information next episode.
Yeah, but yeah, stay tuned for Realms Deep. We're going to be dropping a new content trailer on that. So get hype. There's a lot of cool games on there too that are going to be coming out. I've been tuning into their Discord, and they've got some neat stuff. So get hype on that.
All right. Well, thank you as always for listening, and until next time, desert.
What?